We were meeting at the White House and giving a progress report on the Keystone Shortway with all of our planning and everything ready to go. And in walks President Dwight Eisenhower. And I knew he looked like a big man, but he looked twice as tall. He looked almost 10 feet tall when he walked in. So we explained to him about the highway and the opposition especially. The opposition by Mayor Dilworth, who was running for governor of Pennsylvania. Well, President Eisenhower jumped up, he hit the desk, and if I may quote from a note that we got from the meeting tape, he said, he slapped both hands on the desk and he said, "Now listen here, listen good. I'm satisfied you people have the best road plan for the dollars to be spent." He hit the desk again, he said, "Attack your opposition with facts, overwhelm them, and when they surrender, shake their hands and invite them to go for a ride when the road is open." And we were flabbergasted. I mean, we said, here's the President of the United States, and this was his baby, don't forget. He had them pass the Highway Act. Now, as far as getting this highway close to Hazleton, we found out that a lot of the land was owned by the state, number one, to give up the free land. And also, the Hazleton delegation with Marty Cohn, myself, Frank, and the others from the Highway Committee, we had, I think, put the biggest effort in of anybody across the state into this highway. And the fact that we were getting the 81 moved over this way too. They felt that this was a good place to have a crossroads, a good crossroads, and that's how we got it. Overall, we won out because we showed, by virtue of the population base on the north-south route, hitting like past Pottsville, Hazleton, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, that this would serve more people along the line. By forming McAdoo, we just felt confident at the beginning that we would get this going, and this highway to have a crossroads right near us. This was something we never dreamed about at the beginning, and that's what came about. We had a banquet down at Genetti's hotel. Governor Scranton came in, everybody patting each other in the back.
Yes, sir. These come have very high priority, as you know, and we're full steam ahead on them. There'll be 100 miles of the shortway under construction this year that wasn't last, and it'll be the biggest highway construction season in the history of the state, and we hope to continue that, and we think we can for the remainder of the administration.
Every contractor in the Hazleton area, some smaller guys closed down and put their men to work with the Pagnotti firm, for example, which is one of the big firms on the building of the Keystone Shortway. And many of the side roads off, coming on, for example, the McAdoo Freeway, as they call it, going out to Humboldt. That all came about because of Interstate 81. Old Route 29, which is now Route 93, that was because of the interstate exit out here on the highway. There would have to be some improvement because there would be increased traffic in that. But we kept on developing the theme that now with McAdoo coming, this would be the highway network for industry, to take their goods and services out of the area. And that went over. That was sort of a marriage there to help us in the McAdoo effort. The intersection of 80 and 81 was dedicated on August 22nd, 1966. And the big grand party, when the Keystone Shortway was opened, and the formal dedication was held, the last ribbon cutting was held at a little town called Milesburg near State College. Governor Schaefer was the governor then, and he had a Goodyear blimp came in, and he was in the cockpit, and he came down and he cut it with this blimp. Hazleton played one of the biggest parts of anybody in the Shortway Association, with our chamber and everybody volunteering. When the banquet was held, we all wore McAdoo hats. In the banquet, we wore McAdoo hats and at the ribbon cutting. And Governor Schaefer says, he was giving acknowledgments, and he said, "I can't forget that group over there," he says. That Hazleton delegation, he said, that McAdoo group, he said, they can do, and he made us feel real good.
I remember when Valmont Industrial Park was running out of available sites, and we had to do something to ensure that we had land for the future development. So Dr. Dessen appointed a separate site-seeking committee to go out and try to find land somewhere in the target area of about 15 miles in radius of Hazleton proper. So they set out with a search, and one of the first Thankfully, one of the early parcels of land that they came across was the piece of land that lay along Route 924, north and south of 924, between West Hazleton and Shepton. This section of land that we purchased then in Humboldt, that extended right out practically to the Shepton community, was all torn up, and this land was far from being the most desirable. But the eventual figure that we did pay was, I think it was $94 an acre for that land. And that was settled in, I believe it was December of 1969. Now we had the land, and one of the first things that we ran into was, well, what are we going to call this new park? Our legal department, principally Attorney Feldman at that time, and when we discussed the land at our board meetings, we called it the Humboldt land. So we decided, let's name it Humboldt Industrial Development Park. And that's how that park came about. Once we had the land and we had it named as the Humboldt Industrial Park, we needed to get infrastructure in there and get the park developed. McAdoo had to build our own railroad. And in fact, in the Humboldt Park, we have our own sewerage system, we have the railroad and the water systems, and these are all owned by McAdoo. We were ready for our first industry, and some of you may not know that that first industry was Ryder System. We sold Ryder's a small, I believe it was a 3 or 4 acre section in Humboldt, and they put the first building up in the Humboldt Industrial Development Park, and that was the beginning of great things. The second one, by the way, was the Cadbury Corporation. In 1959, McAdoo had a prospect from Plano, Texas, and this was a Lone Star Boat Company, which was a good employer and a desirable one. So we wanted them to locate here, but they wanted to be in a small community that had the amenities necessary, the sewer and water and so on, but they didn't want to be in an industrial park. So we sought out and found a 40-acre piece of land along the highway between Tresco and McAdoo. We showed this land. It was a nice flat section to the company, and they liked the idea that they were on the outskirts away from the city of Hazleton and kind of by themselves, but they had access to the road right adjacent to their property. We decided that we would buy this piece of property as the beginning of another industrial park. We had two prospects at the same time that wanted to be adjacent to each other with their buildings because their manufacturing complemented. So they wanted to be adjacent, but again, they didn't want to be in a developed industrial park. So we had this kind of ace in the hole, this McAdoo piece of land that McAdoo acquired through the merger with HIDC in 1975. And so we began the real construction of the McAdoo Park in about 1986, 87, somewhere in there. This was the beginning of the McAdoo